Hi, Imran.
Hey Nicole,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask for your name, your year of study, your program, and your racial identity.
Okay. So my name is Imran. I'm currently in my fourth year. I'm doing a specialist in bioinformatics, and I'm from Uganda originally, and I identify myself as a Black African.
Nice, thank you. So I just wanted to thank you so much for being a part of this interview. The study is called An Examination of Personality Expression in Everyday Life in a Canadian Sample of Racialized Undergraduate Students by Joanne M. Chung et al. I'm going to start with the overview of the study and then we'll get right into it. According to the study, a sample of racialized undergraduate students from UTM reported experiences that suggest that their personality expression differs depending on whether they're in public or private domains on a daily basis. For example, participants adjusted their behavior in public to be more careful, more agreeable, and to show more enthusiasm. Interestingly, when racialized students were in private spaces or with others of the same ethnic background, their personality expression differed, which raised the possibility that they were less likely to adjust their behavior when by themselves or with similar others, also known as code switching. What are your thoughts about this study?
Well, I think it's a very interesting study. When I first heard of that, it made me think back to when I was in high school. So originally I was born in Uganda, and but I went to high school in Kenya. And I
Mhm,
went to an international high school, and most of the students who were in that high school had lived in Kenya, but weren't all were all from different ethnic backgrounds. And the first
mhm,
thing that jumped out to me was, regardless of their different ethnic backgrounds, they all kind of spoke the same lingo, quote unquote.
mhm,
And but me, originally being from Uganda, my accent was and my lingo was a bit harder for them to recognize, but over the years, up until I graduated, I realized that my accent had kind of morphed into like a half Kenyan, half Ugandan kind of lingo, and that's what made
mhm,
me think about that once I heard
mhm.
about the study. Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah.
cool. So this kind of goes into like the code switching. So to briefly go over code switching, it's a technique that's used by minority groups where they are not just changing their behavior, but changing their behavior to fit in with a dominant group based on their environment. For example, being in the classroom versus being at home. Code switching technically ensures that you don't feel ostracized and excluded. Was there ever a time that you had to use code switching to navigate through an interaction?
Um, yes, I would say when I first moved from Rainbow, my old school in Uganda, I went to Peponi, the school in Nairobi. That was another point in time where I had to use code switching, but in this case, I was just speaking generally, it was like an orientation weekend. I'd gone for like a scholarship day, and during that time, we were all on like the PE field and all trying to introduce ourselves. And I felt as though if I was back home, I would have
Mhm,
introduced myself in a louder way. I would have been more of myself and just been more open. But
mhm,
when it came to introducing myself, I had to probably introduce myself about three times because I just felt I wasn't feeling comfortable in the new situation I was in. So that was another time I felt as though I had to switch. I felt as though code switching took place, but I wasn't trying to switch my code. I was trying to be the way I was, but something in my head or something, maybe because I was nervous or anxious, made me kind of switch the way I normally talk and kind of gave like a lasting impression at that point in time that I was more introverted than I actually was in normal conversation. Yeah.
mhm. That is so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. This kind of leads to our next question. Do you feel like racial and ethnic cues are predictors for your personality expression? So, for example, when you're surrounded by, let's say, majority white folks or experiencing any form of discrimination in a specific situation, do you think that affects how extroverted or how conscientious or how open or even how agreeable you are? So, just a reminder. Openness relates to how down to earth someone is. Conscientiousness relates to being responsible, careful, and diligent. Extroversion relates to expressing positive emotions, being social, talkative, energetic, like how you may be more extroverted during a job interview. And agreeableness is related to being friendly, cooperative, compassionate, and trusting. So just to reiterate the question, do you believe that cues relating to race and ethnicity can be used to predict how you express yourself?
I do believe that certain cultures have different ways of interacting. Like, for example, some ethnicities might generally speak louder to each other than other ethnicities.
Mhm.
And so that's one side of the spectrum. And I feel as though some, when you're maybe in a very new environment and you're used to speaking in a very loud manner, some people, depending on their upbringing, may want to quieten their tone just as a respect to the person they're talking to, in the form as they don't want to disrespect that person. But then there are people on the
Mhm.
other side of the spectrum who are maybe from a different upbringing that that would react and that would be themselves in all scenarios, whether they're talking to a group that's predominantly white or Chinese or black. They'll just say what they want to say the way what they want to say it whenever they want to say it,
Mhm.
just because of that kind of upbringing. So I think it's more about someone's upbringing and their specific personality than it would be about the racial and ethnic cues that go along with predicting personality expression. Yeah.
So it seems like the researchers found that when racialized individuals are in private versus public domains, their authenticity differs, leaving racialized people feeling ingenuine. When I say authenticity, I'm talking about how you feel about the way you are. So do you feel like how you show your true self is different when in private domains such as your home versus public domains such as school?
I think generally, or maybe more specifically to me, but my opinion of it is when you're in a new public situation, most people, I believe, try to show about 30% of their true self just in an attempt to maybe create a good impression. But what would happen is
Yes.
that maybe 60% of their true self will come out because you can't really hold it back. There's some involuntary actions and automatic
Yes.
response that you do that will just make you more true to yourself than you're trying to not be. But then when you're in a private setting, such as your home, or even when you're in an environment that is very comfortable for you, I feel like that's when you're closer to that 100% of your true self that you're expressing.
That's very true. So do you feel that, like, I love that. I love the answer. It's a very creative way to answer it. So I know that was more like generally speaking. Do you
Yeah.
feel that applies to you as well?
Yeah, once I heard the question, I think that generally I do try to show my true self 100% of the time, but in an attempt
Hmm.
to create a good impression, I do lose a percent of my true self because of wanting to give a certain impression that may not be my true impression, but I've been more conscious of that and I've been trying to show my true self more than I usually did in the past. Yeah.
I love that. I'm like silently clapping for you. That's
Thank
really
you.
good because like to have self-awareness is like one thing, but to actually like implement what you are aware of to like be as authentic as you can is like
Yeah,
such an amazing thing. That's really good.
thank
Yeah,
you.
I definitely got it. You're welcome. Okay, so this leads to our final question. Is there anything that you would like to see included in future studies for personality expression of racialized emerging adults?
I would want to do a different kind of study where we do the same kind of questions that you've asked, but we ask one age group, maybe between 10 to 30 years old, another age group between 30 to 50, and 50 to 70
Mhm.
to get a sense of how they think about things. Because I just remember when I was a child, I never really saw color in that sense. Like I had maybe being in an international school was good for me in that sense that all the people I was
Mhm.
always interacting with were all from different backgrounds, and I just thought that that was normal. Like I had friends
Yeah.
from different ethnicities, and that was just normal to me. It wasn't didn't feel weird talking to them a different way. I wasn't trying to act a different way towards
Mhm.
I would now. But I feel like once I've grown up and once I've seen life a little bit more, I feel like I still sometimes do um act a different way when I'm talking to different people of different backgrounds, but I'm trying not to, but I feel like when I was a kid, I really never thought about it in that sense. Yeah.
That is so true because like as a kid, we're more carefree. We don't really care about what's happening out there in the world because we don't
Mhm.
really need that awareness at that age. We just need to focus on being a child. Okay, well, that is the end of the interview. I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this interview. I totally appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you have a great day.
We have a great day too. Thank you for letting me be a part of your interview as well.